of Member and Donor Relations here at SF Film. Following the presentation, we will have a box office set up in the lobby so that you're able to purchase tickets. You're going to hear about a lot of films tonight that you're going to be excited to see. We encourage you to get your tickets now. Anyone who becomes a member or renews their membership will receive 2 complimentary tickets to Doc Stories. In addition, after the program, we invite you to join us at the Laureate inside the Laurel Inn. We have drink specials that can be redeemed when you show your ticket or your receipt from this evening. The Laureate is also going to serve as our Doc Stories lounge, so you can pop in there between screenings during the festival. I would like to thank our event sponsors for tonight, Fort Point Beer and Hint Water. Beer and water. And I'm really excited to introduce our talented programming team: Rachel Rosen, Rod Armstrong, Amanda Salazar, and Audrey Chang.
Hi everyone, we're so excited to see you. Thank you for coming. So we started Doc Stories 5 years ago. This is the 5th edition. As Carrie said, this is our first members night for Doc Stories. We have such great clips and trailers, and members night for the International Film Festival in the spring is so fun. We thought, like, why not give people like a taste of what the movies are actually going to look like so they can get excited and decide what to see at Doc Stories. So we started the festival 5 years ago because it's started to become apparent that this new golden age of documentary filmmaking was really going strong, and there were so many great films that were coming out in the fall as well as the spring, and so that the spring festival just wasn't enough to contain them all. And we know that nonfiction filmmaking is such a deep part of the Bay Area, and so that there obviously is an interest and an audience for them. And so the Fall Festival idea is really to celebrate some of the bigger distributor films that are coming out in the fall that are going to be part of documentary awards and critics conversations. But also to highlight both shorts and features and just have a second great celebration of documentaries. So we're going to tell you about the program and watch a bunch of clips.
Cool. So the order of business is that we're going to talk about the opening and closing night first, and then we're going to go chronologically. So I'm going to talk about opening night, which is the Apollo. And the Apollo Theater in Harlem has arguably been the preeminent showcase for African American music and culture for 80 years. And director Roger Ross Williams' film about this venerable institution opens this year's Doc Stories at the Castro Theater. And what Roger has done is he's juxtaposing joyous musical performances with people like Eartha Kitt and James Brown. You heard some of the music coming in, and that was very purposeful to get people excited about the program. And he puts it alongside the cultural context of Black civic life during the various eras, alongside a star-studded performance of Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me, where various movie stars that many people will recognize are reading that novel-length essay or novella-length essay in front of a live audience. And what we're really pleased to present is that the Bay Area musician Fantastic Negrito will perform a short acoustic set before the film. He will introduce the film, and then afterward there will be a Q&A with the director Roger Ross Williams and producer Lisa Cortez. So what we're going to watch now is a clip from the Apollo and a short music video that is not acoustic by Fantastic Negrito.
Thrust of our closing night is that we're going to be doing a tribute to the nonfiction filmmaking of Martin Scorsese. And, you know, people know, I think, his nonfiction work, but he's mainly known for his fantastic narrative features. But he's been making documentaries since just after he graduated from film school in 1966. He actually collaborated with the U.S. Information Agency to make a film that is nigh on impossible to find, called New York Melting Point. And he's gone on to make over 16 nonfiction films, from Italian American, from the early 70s about his family, to some wonderful films about filmmaking, his journey through American cinema and also Italian cinema. And then, of course, obviously, his amazing music films, starting in 78, was it? Yes, 78, The Last Waltz, filmed right here in San Francisco, the last concert of his friend Ronnie Robertson. He's made films about the Rolling Stones, about Bob Dylan. And so the evening is going to be a clips presentation from his nonfiction work, a screening of his new film, and then an onstage conversation about his documentary film work. So it's really exciting to have him here in person. And the film that we're going to be showing with that is his latest documentary, The Rolling Thunder Revue. Yes, you can see it on Netflix, but why would you do that? You can see it on the big Castro screen with the music blaring. And it's also, I think, a pretty interesting film to show as part of this program, because if you've read anything about it, it's kind of notable in that it is a mixture of nonfiction and fantasy. There are things in the film that are just patently not true. You'll get a glimpse of maybe one or two of them in the trailer you're about to see. So you can either come see the film fresh and see if you can pick out the things that don't quite ring true to you, or you can go online, a quick search will reveal what some of them are. But mostly we're going to get an opportunity to talk to a master filmmaker in any form about his work in nonfiction that we love so much. So let's take, oh, and I'll just say about Rolling Thunder Revue, it's comprised of really beautifully digitally restored footage that was shot at the time of the Rolling Thunder Revue tour for other purposes, and also features an on-camera interview with Dylan, which is, it's like the first time in many, many years that he's gone on camera to do an interview. So here's a taste of it in the trailer for Rolling Thunder Revue.
It includes the short form as well. We actually have not one, but 3 documentary shorts programs at Doc Stories for the weekend. So the first one that will be kicking off our Saturday, the first program that day is Doc Shorts 1, Childhood Heroes. This program has 3 shorts, and each actually feature children within the films, but they're actually, the main focus is on the adults and how they interact not only with these children, but really as they're creating a sense of normalcy and a safe space and really giving them hope, given each of their circumstances, which often are dealing with a lot of trauma, unfortunately, in these 3 films. The first short is a film called A Childhood on Fire. And this film is directed by Filmhouse resident Jason Hamasick. Yeah, all right. Very excited. And this film actually follows a father as he is talking about and referencing his abusive upbringing. And meanwhile, as he's telling his own story, he's writing notes to his 2 sons. And as he's doing this, he's really trying to remind them and tell them how much he loves them and how much he's going to be there to support them, and really working to kind of break that cycle of abuse so it doesn't get transferred down to generation to generation. Next is a film called Lost and Found. This is by the filmmaker Orlando von Eisendel. You might know him. He won the Academy Award for the short documentary The White Helmets a few years ago. And now he takes us to the world's largest refugee camp It's in Bangladesh, where there's almost 700,000 people that reside there that have all had to flee Myanmar due to genocide. And so they are now living there, some for many years. And we focus actually on one man and his pursuit to basically keep children safe by actually, more often than not, children get separated from their parents in this kind of hectic upbringing, and where they're, especially when they've just arrived, and he has set up a place where he can connect lost children back with their parents. And finally, the last film in this program is Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone If You're a Girl. And the filmmaker takes us to Kabul, where there's a school that is providing education for young girls, and along with that, they are teaching them how to skateboard. And you get to not only interviews with the really dynamic and beautiful and hopeful young girls in the school, but also the teachers that are teaching them not only skateboarding and why they want to teach them to skateboard, but also just a basic education, because they had not been given that originally. And despite those kind of, the limitations that they're experiencing, we're really trying to provide a sense of hope for them. We will have the filmmaker from that film, Carol Geisinger, is expected to attend along with Jason Hanesick for a Q&A for this program. And the clip that you're about to see is actually a trailer from Lost and Found. We have actually shown quite a few of her films at the International Film Festival dating back to the early 90s, and she was awarded the Persistence of Vision Award in 2015. So we're very excited to be showing her newest film. And here she profiles the outspoken and very feisty photojournalist Letizia Battaglia, who she started her career very late in life, like actually picking up a camera at 40, and there she joined her local newspaper, where she ended up covering the mafia's rise to power in Palermo, Italy. And Lancenato does an incredible job of weaving not only interviews with Letizia, but also with many of her friends and lovers, and just kind of giving a great background to her, but also with all of these photos that she has taken, which are incredibly striking. But I would say they are sometimes graphic, as you can imagine. She's on the front lines as a photojournalist documenting the rise of the mafia between the 70s and 80s, but they are definitely quite moving, and they are quite striking on the big screen. Letizia is a really incredible subject to document. She's very powerful and a dynamic woman, and also a phenomenal photographer, as you'll see. And so you can see how people are very drawn to her, and that kind of gives her this like unparalleled access to be very much on the front lines. And you'll get a very good sense of the history of this community and also her own life. The clip that you are about to see is of Letizia actually explaining the first death that she has seen in the film.
We are screening on Saturday is Oliver Sacks' His Own Life, which is directed by Rick Burns. He's directed a number of documentaries, mostly historical documentaries for PBS. And in this film, he basically invites us to sit alongside Oliver Sacks' most trusted colleagues and friends after he receives a diagnosis of terminal cancer in 2015. So the film is so wonderful in its simplicity because we, as the audience, as a viewer, are allowed to listen as Oliver Sacks recounts and talks about his life, his 82 years spent on Earth. And as much as we celebrate and acknowledge his wonderful achievements in both neuroscience and his authorship in terms of Awakenings and The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, a lot of the film deals with his really revealing the early years of his life when he was growing up and his conflicted relationship with his mother, who herself was a very esteemed, one of the first female surgeons in England. So he's very open about that, as well as his coming out as homosexual in England, and his years spent in California in the 60s, both in San Francisco and Los Angeles, where he became very involved in bodybuilding and became addicted to amphetamines, and would take his motorcycle and just drive out to the desert for days. So it was during this period that he decided, that he needed to find a path in life, which is what drew him to New York in 1965. and which is where he found his place in neuroscience and neurology. So it's a really wonderful, revealing portrait of an incredible humanitarian and scientist. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for us to celebrate his incredible heart and mind. And he is very much missed right now. So we are going to look at a short clip, which reveals a lot of his sense of humor and his love for the periodic table.
Periodic table socks. The final show on Saturday the 2nd is another one of our shorts programs, and it is the 5th anniversary, or the 5th edition of our New York Times OpDocs program. So Amanda mentioned that one of the things that is great about the internet age is actually the effect that it's had on short documentary filmmaking, because a bunch of news platforms and other nonfiction platforms have provided a way for nonfiction filmmakers to make their films to the length that suits their subjects, instead of trying to conform to a public television or theatrical time frame, and to have them widely seen. So we started out 5 years ago, and we've had 5 amazing programs. The New York Times is really does a great job of showcasing both very topical films, but also some very lighthearted ones. And this year's program is actually pretty much on the lighthearted side, although there are serious strands to each of the films. So this year's program is going to have 5 short documentaries in it, including The Last Storm, which features a man who is awaiting a potentially negative medical diagnosis and may be having his last opportunity to go out and experience some serious weather during tornado season. A film called My American Surrogate, which is about a Chinese businesswoman who lives in California. And she helps Chinese women find American surrogates for their children. And in this case, she herself is looking for a young American woman to carry a child for her. It also includes Stay Close, which is a wonderful partly animated documentary, which tells the story of an African-American fencer who is facing some very difficult challenges in his personal life as he endeavors to get to the Olympics for fencing. Also, Tundris and the Chicken from Hell. This shows the incredible challenges of having a pet chicken that you keep in your apartment. And finally, a documentary called Walk Run Cha Cha, which is about a couple who basically lost their youth in Vietnam during the war and have made it to the US and are discovering what they want to do with the last chapter of their life in California. Several of the filmmakers will be here, as well as representatives from New York Times OpDocs. This is one where, I think it's the only one where we don't have a clip. So I'll just move right on into Sunday morning. So Sunday morning, we're doing the second of our tributes this year. And that is, the program is called Growing Up Female. It is a tribute to the documentary filmmaker Julia Reichert. I don't know how many of you saw her wonderful American Factory at the San Francisco Film Festival this spring, or have had a chance to see it since it's come out. It's really quite a beautiful work about a factory that's been, and sort of the cultural understandings and misunderstandings between the new Chinese factory owners and the American auto workers at that factory. But Julia has been making documentaries since, again, she graduated from school in the 70s. Growing Up Female, which we'll show as part of the program, is the first documentary she made after she graduated in 1971. And as she describes it, she is really very curious. She is really attracted to stories of working class people because she comes from a working class family. So the way she describes what her films are about is they're about working people and their fate, but specifically women in the workplace whenever possible. And if you see her films, you see, one of the things that documentarians is important, people always use the word access, but what you see in her films is the way she gains access is through trust. And she often appears in her films, and you can tell that the people who she's talking to really trust her and relate to her. So she's made a number of wonderful films about those topics that I mentioned, including Union Maids, about workers' strike, Seeing Red, about American Communists, a film about a methadone program, and a wonderful 4-hour documentary that won several prizes at the Sundance Film Festival about childhood cancer called A Lion in the House. Another thing that's really interesting about her is when she made Growing Up Female in the 1971, she didn't quite know how to get it out into the world. So she is one of the co-founders of an organization called New Day Films, which is a collective of filmmakers who distribute their own films, largely to the educational market, but also theatrically. And they're, a lot of the documentarians in the Bay Area are part of the New Day Films collective. So Growing Up Female is an incredible look, and just by interviewing very intimately, very casually, like sometimes sitting in a bedroom, a number of girls and young women from ages about 4 to their 20s, just by talking to them, she reveals the way that societal forces mold feminine identity and push them in one way or another. And we tend to think of the 70s as the beginning of the women's movement, and it can be kind of shocking just to see what the attitudes are that institutions and parents are trying to embed in their in the females in this movie. So the afternoon will consist again of a clips program of work, an onstage moderated interview, and then this screening of Growing Up Female. There are a number of places around the country that are doing a small touring program of her work, so we have borrowed a clips program that will have branding to the Wexner Center, so we thank them for helping us give you a flavor of Julia Reichert's films.